Hello there, thrill seekers, and good morning, or whatever time of day it is for you. For today's Monday Moldy Oldie, I want to put the rest of that talk that I put up on Friday from Benediktushof in Germany sometime in the year 2016, because I think it was a pretty good talk, and I've cut a couple of things out, but they're mostly kind of administrative things, and there's one camera glitch that I cut out, so you'll notice it jump cuts a few times. But basically, this is now between Friday's thing and today's, you'll have the entire, at least good parts of the talk, or the parts that are worth listening to. And I like this one. I listened to it this morning going, whoa, that guy's good, which sounds weird, I'm sorry. Sometimes when I give a talk, if the audience is a good audience and the atmosphere is a good atmosphere and everything is right, things bubble up that the me, the personal me, looks at it later and goes, how did that come out of me? Because it doesn't seem like, it just seems more than what I would think of myself as being capable of. I'm sorry, that's probably so much hype that you're going to end up hating this now. And you're going to be like, oh, it's not as good as he said. Anyway, that's the danger of saying stuff like that. But I just thought this was a good talk, and I even enjoyed it here 7 years later. And I noticed that I still have the same laptop. The laptop that I'm recording this on is the same one that I had in 2016, which is why it's getting wonky lately. So anyway, there's a donation thing at the end of the video if you want to donate to getting me a new laptop. But that's neither here nor there. Here is the talk. It's called Studying Silence, and let's listen to some Studying Silence. This is Haus der Stille, right? What is the word still, of course, exists in English, but what does it mean in German? Is it more like silence?
Silence.
Silence? So I was thinking about what is a session, or what are we doing here? And I think we're spending several days studying silence, which is a kind of interesting thing to do, or a thing to try. I feel like usually when I work on studying silence, it takes maybe at least a day, maybe sometimes several days before I even find silence. We try to create a condition where it's easier to find silence so that we're quiet during the day, and we do this activity in which we're looking at a wall, a blank wall. And we try to maintain the silence for as long as possible. The one thing, though, that I think is common to all of us is silence, that still, Haus der Still part of it. The silence, in the noise of our thoughts and our opinions and our ideas, we have a lot of differences. So we generally focus on those differences, and we think those are the important things. That's kind of how our society works. And I think sometimes it helps to make a contribution by somebody provides a unique way of a unique opinion or a unique idea, and that can help move society forward, an invention and things like that. That's also useful. But because we focus so exclusively on the parts of ourselves that are unique, we ignore silence, because silence is not unique. Silence is the same for everyone, I think. When you can find silence it always sounds the same, it always looks the same, it always feels the same for everyone who encounters it. And when you can go deeply into it, you start to find the common ground, the common elements of all people and of all things. Silence is even the same for animals or for rocks or for trees and everything. And sometimes, if you work on it, if you get very deeply into it, you find that connection. And whether you discover that connection or not isn't terribly important. I think sometimes people make too much of that, but Dogen says that you don't necessarily notice your own enlightenment. And one time, Nishijima Roshi, my teacher, was asked about that, and he said, "You never notice enlightenment." I remember when I heard that thinking, well, what am I doing this for if I'm never going to notice it? But I think I understand what he meant, which is the part of you that notices things is not the part that can enter into silence. But that doesn't mean you can't enter into silence. It just means you can't notice it the way you notice other things, because it has no contrast with anything. It has no division with anything. So the way we usually understand the world is we understand the differences. Like this card says Brad Warner, and this card says Thomas David, right? So we notice the differences. But in the silence, actually, maybe we can use the metaphor. This white space is the same, right? Between both papers. And that's kind of what we're going for. Instead of going for this part that's different, we're trying to examine this part that has no differences, that has no contrast, nothing to compare it to. If we look at the white space of both of these papers, we can't find any difference at all between them. And that's what we're trying to go for here, and just kind of settling into that or something. I did bring one little quotation that I thought I would read. This is something I've been doing on this tour a lot. There was my first teacher was a guy named Tim McCarthy, an American guy, who I talked about yesterday a little bit. About 10 years older than me. He's still about 10 years older than me, because he's still alive. Nishijima Roshi, my other teacher, died. So I still talk to Tim, and his teacher was a Japanese man named Kobun Chino Otogawa. And Kobun is his Dharma name, it's his Buddhist name. He died in Switzerland in 2002. And when he was alive, he told his students a lot of his students wanted to try to make a book of his teachings, and he didn't want anybody to make a book of his teachings. But apparently, he said to one or two of his students that, okay, after I die, you can make a book of my teachings. And they did make a book, but I don't know why, but it hasn't been published anywhere. It's on the internet. And if you look under, it's called Kobun Book. That's what I found, a Kobun book. And there's a website where you can download it. But I've been reading things because they're very short. I've heard some recordings of him, and his English was good but not great, and he talked very, very slowly. And it's actually quite hard to listen to the recordings of his talks because it's one word per minute or something. It's really slow. So I imagine these talks are very much edited because the English seems much clearer here. And he was probably talking for a half an hour or an hour or something. But when I read them out loud, they take about 5 minutes. So I'll just read you this one that I found, which addresses this idea of nothing. It's titled avidya, which vidya is a Sanskrit word which means knowledge, vidya. And when you put an a in front of a Sanskrit word, that negates it. So like in English, non. You must have something in German. But avidya is non-knowledge. Basic ignorance, avidya, is unavoidable, even when we are learning various things through the sense organs. Vidya means clarity and its contents. Avidya is absence of vidya. Even if you are a learned person, still you cannot avoid the basic avidya, or no wisdom. When you live alone, the world and universe are perfect to you. Almost everything is clear. Yet this knowing of your own world without knowing what another's world looks like is like a shellfish looking at its shell. You think this is the universe when it is just the internal field of the shell. There may be nothing wrong with it, but you still have curiosity about how other people experience their lives. Even when we discuss cultural differences, different religions, different academic fields, still, we are very much blind about others' worlds. We hope everybody experiences things similarly, but come to know that everybody experiences things slightly differently. Even when we are walking, driving, still, avidya is with us. You meet a new person, you say, "Tell me about yourself." And they say, "My name is so-and-so, my personal history is so-and-so." You can also ask the same questions about yourself. We've been taught various objective truths, but they are actually just suppositions. Maybe I'm a man. Maybe I'm a woman. Maybe this, in the United States, is the best way of life. Even when our comparative conceptual knowledge piles up and is analyzed, there is still maybe. This attempt to understand, become conscious of the self, is objective self, which doesn't exist, alas. The life we live is not necessarily what we have studied or discussed. This conceptual, knowledge-based self is nothing but a game of created self-consciousness, an image of ignorance, so to speak. Life has to be freed and lived instead of being known. Knowing never satisfies, although knowing is one of our major intellectual functions. It's as if you say, "Oh, I got it," and then go to sleep.